what a Buddha is and the history of the Buddhism in the Indian subcontinent, which for the last 800 or 900 years has been completely forgotten. And there's a historical reason for that. And through the centuries, completely myths, false myths about the Buddha and the history of the Buddhism in the Indian subcontinent has been spread throughout the centuries. So much so that most Indian and Nepalese as well are completely confused about this. Totally confused about this. So that is the reason why I always wanted to present. I'm in Nepal, I've already presented to Nepalese. My next wish was to present it to the Indian people. So first, what is a Buddha? Not who is a Buddha, what is a Buddha? This is important because, like in the Indian subcontinent, especially Indians call Buddha Buddha Dev. Deva. Now, once I go through the whole process, you'll understand why the word, the epithet Deva is wrong. So, what is a Buddha? To understand that, we have to take up Sakyamuni's own words. And he seek 3 Asankhya Kalpas before. Asankhya Kalpa. Not Asankhya years, and one Asankhya Kalpa has 60 zero kalpas, and that's one Asankhya Kalpa. So 3 Asankhya Kalpa ago, there was a yogi bhikshu called Bhikshu Sumedh, who was a very advanced yogi, who would, in today's language, of the Indian subcontinent, would be called Paucha Abba Bhakti. Now this man, when he saw Dipankar Buddha walking by, there was a lot of slimy mud on the way. So he slept on the ground so that Dipankar Buddha could walk over him, cross over him. When Dipankar Buddha crossed over and turned back, Bhikshu Sumedh got up and said, made an aspiration that may I become a Buddha like you. Now this small part itself is a big question. This man was already a full-fledged yogi. You don't find that kind of yogi here anymore. And he could go to Indralok and come back. And what is such a man saying? May I become a Buddha like you? That question itself needs to be analyzed. Second, it took him 3 Asankhya Kalpas of practice, meeting many Buddhas on the way and practicing with them. During that period, Sakyamuni himself said, he was born 7 times as Indra and many times as Brahma, which also means Devas like Indra, Brahma and so on are not Buddhas. And in the process, potentials of the human mind, or mind, just not human mind, sentient being's mind, developed to its fullest, completest, and so much so spiritualized that even his body began to change, and he began to attain what is called the Bhattis Lakshana, of which I'm sure as Indians you've heard the name before, and Asi Anubhyanjan, 80 minor characteristics and 80 major characteristics, 32 major characteristics. And among the 32 major characteristics like long hair, long hands, and so on, golden skin, colored skin, the last 2 that appears in a Buddha is a tuft of hair in the middle of the eyebrows here, turned like this, one and a half curl, which is called Urna in Sanskrit. And finally, the skull raised up here like this, and it's called Ushnisha. Now, this, I'm sure as Indians, you have seen hundreds of Buddha statues, and you have seen this thing raised up here. And I'm sure as Indians, like Nepalese, most have thought that this was probably tuft of hair tied up, like rishis. But Buddha, Sakyamuni was a bhikshu. Bhikshus don't have hair, right? So that is not a tuft of hair like that. That is not a tuft of hair raised, tied up here, but the skull raised points above, called Ushnisa. That is the last to appear in a Buddha. In the Mahayana tradition, in the Mahayana tradition, it is said that he achieved full, total, and correct enlightenment in Akanishta Bhuvan, which is the highest Brahmaloka. There are 17 different Brahmalokas, higher stages, and the 17th is the Akanishta Bhuvan. Akanishta means not younger than any, so the highest. And that is where he reached his full enlightenment. But according to the Theravada, he became enlightened in Bodh Gaya, under the Bodhi tree. But in Mahayana tradition, the rest is enactment, to teach people. And the word Buddha is actually a short form for Samyak Sambuddha. And Samyak means correctly, and Sam means totally. Buddha enlightened. So it is not merely an enlightened person. He is a correctly and totally enlightened person. Which means in the Buddhist tradition, that implies there are wrong types of enlightenment too. One, and even if it is the correct enlightenment, there are many degrees to it. In the Mahayana tradition, there are actually 10 degrees. In the Theravada tradition, there are 4 degrees. In the Theravada tradition, it's Shrotapanna, which means entering the stream. Sakridagami means returning once. Anagami, not returning anymore. And Arat. And Arat is from Arihata, which means Ari means enemy, Hata means destroyed. And that is basically our Klesh and Avidya. These are our enemies. But in the Mahayana tradition, it's slightly different because the Theravada tradition is a Sravakya Nikaya. It is a branch of Sravakya. In ancient India, there were 22 different Sravaka Nikayas, of which Theravada is only one. And Theravada is the only one that survives. The rest have completely vanished. In the Mahayana tradition, Mahayana is not a Nikaya. It is like Sravakya. And within Mahayana, there are many Nikayas. In fact, 2 major Nikayas, which are also called Yan. And the Advaya Vajra Sangra of Advaya Vajra was born in Lumbini and taught in Nalanda and these various places also. He says, Mahayana Dvividam. Mahayana is of 2 kinds. Paramitanaya, Mantranaya Cheti. Means Paramitayan and Mantrayan. Paramitayan and Mantrayan. And about this we will talk later. But going back to the Buddha, there are 10 levels of enlightenment. When you enter the first level, you experience shunyata, emptiness, for the first time directly or non-conceptually, avikalpa. Avikalpa. And that is the first bhumi. Then is the second bhumi, third bhumi, fourth bhumi, 5, 6, 7, 8th bhumi. And the 8th bhumi till the 7th bhumi, not compared to us, but compared to enlightened people, are considered impure, first to seventh bhumi. From the eighth bhumi to the 10th bhumi is considered as pure. And then from 10th bhumi upwards to Buddhahood, full, complete, total Buddhahood, complete, total enlightenment. The first bhumi, second bhumi, third are not samyak. They are not totally enlightened. So, enlightenment is a very vague word nowadays. The word English word enlightened, awakened has been used, and people read more English book than Sanskrit or Pali and so on. And so we lose the fine nitty-gritties of all these things. Just to give an example, klesha in English is translated as emotional defilement, but it does not convey all the innuendos and connotations that the word klesh has. Klesh comes from the Sanskrit word, and the word klishta, which means difficult, problematic, are the same root. These emotions, kama, krodha, moha, and so on, create problems for us. And it is these kleshas that make us unable to enjoy life fully, unable to relax and enjoy life fully, completely. And that is why klesha, emotional defilement, does not give those meanings at all. And this is the problem with the Indian subcontinent today. We have lost contact with our ancient root, which was much more refined in language, dealing with spiritual things than any other language in the world. And so Buddha attained Samyak Sambhutata in Akanishta Bhavan. Then he comes down to Tushita Devaloka, like all Buddhas, and remains there. He remains there until the teachings of the Buddha before him vanishes completely. There are no two Buddhas at the same time. Buddha meaning Buddha's teachings. There are no two Buddha's teachings at the same time. Just like there are no two lions in the same jungle. This is a dharma niyam, rule of dharma. It happens automatically. And so in Tushita, Bhikshu Sumek waits until Kashyap Buddha's teachings completely vanish. What is called Buddha Sasana. Sasana again nowadays is used for ruling the kingdom and so on, those kind of things. But you see, Sastri, Sastra, Sasan, they come from the same root. Sasan, they come from the same. Sasta. Sasta means guru. Buddha is called Sasta also. He is called Sasta Deva Manushyana, the teacher of Deva and human. You'll have to forgive me, this bad cold. So he waits until Kashyap Buddha's teachings completely vanish. Then when they vanish, and there is darkness, spiritual darkness, then the devas from below and above come to Bhikshu Sumek and request that it is time to go. Please go down. So then he chooses, like every Buddha does the same, he chooses the father and mother. This time it was in Lumbini in Nepal, and the father was Sudodhan Sakya, who was the king or more a chieftain actually, because the king in ancient times, especially in the Nepalese area and also the Vrichi area, where the Lichwis ruled, the king, he was called a king, but they were elected. They were elected, not by automatically the son becomes the king. And so he chose Sudodhan and Maya Devi, the mother as Maya Devi. Then he entered the womb of the mother, and I suppose you already know a little bit of the story. The mother saw the dream of a six-tusked white elephant entering her womb, and then the earth shakes at that time. There's a slight shake of an earthquake, And there is what is called the light, prakash, expands throughout the entire three realms of existence called three dhatu in Buddhist terminology. Nowadays in the Indian subcontinent, the word three bhuvan is more common, but the Sanskrit Buddhist terminology is three dhatu. But this is seen not by ordinary people, only with people like rishis and so on who have the capacity to see it. Then he's born, and both the Majjhima Nikaya, Acharya Sutta of Theravada tradition and the Lalita Vistara of Sanskrit tradition say that he came out of the right side of the mother. And the three Deva held him. The three Deva means Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Held him and they put him down and he stepped on the ground. There was a lotus, and you might have seen the statue of a young child with finger raised up like this. And that is, the meaning of that is that I am the eldest in all the three dhatu. This means even when he was a child just born, he was already the eldest in all of three dhatu. So no Deva is higher than him. No Deva, all Devas of the entire realm of existence are below him. Humans, real, and Devas, and so on. Then he grew up. I mean, I'll cut the story short. He grew up, married, and then finally left. But at that time, when he was born, there are two or three things that happen when a Buddha is born. One is the tree under which he will stay and achieve enlightenment. Achieve enlightenment will sprout. It is not necessary that all Buddhas will be under the peepal tree like he did Sakyamuni this time. Some from Ashoka tree, some sal tree, various kind of trees. So this time it was the peepal tree that sprouts. And as he grows, the tree also grows with him. Also when a Buddha is born, and only when a Buddha is born, a very rare flower called Udumbara blooms, opens up. It opens up more and more throughout his life, and when he goes into parinirvana, it wanes away completely. These are signs of a Buddha. And then he left home and went in search of the truth. Now here too, there's a lot of misconception. Most people in the Indian subcontinent think that he studied with Vedic Brahmins and they stuff and so on, these kind of things. And that's why, like, even Swami Vivekananda, such an intelligent man, said that Buddha actually taught the Vedas. But in the time of the Buddha and before him, there were two streams of dharma. One is the Vedic Brahmanism, the other is Shramanism. The Shramans are very old. They probably are as old as the Mohenjo-daro Indus Valley civilization. The difference between Vedic Brahmanism and Shramanism is Vedic Brahmanism is basically doing Havan and Yajna and appeasing the gods, and those gods will make my life happy here. There are no questions in Veda of what is life and those kind of things. What happens after life? Is this all there is to it? These kind of things are not questioned. They come later. In the Veda, which is called Purva Mimamsa, the former thoughts. We don't find this. Later we have Uttar Mimamsa, that is Vedic Brahmanism coming in contact with Shramanism. These questions are raised, and Vedanta was born. Vedanta was born. And also, it's important to understand that this is not a question of Brahmin or Kshetri or this kind of thing. There were many Brahmins who left the Vedic fold and went into the jungles, the forest, to find Shraman gurus. And these two gurus that Buddha studied under were Brahmins, but Shramans. Udrak Ramputra and Alar Kalam. They were Brahmins, but they were Shramans, not Vedic Brahmins. This is something that has been forgotten. People think Brahmin means automatically Hindu or Vedic. Actually, even the word Hindu is wrong here in the time of the Buddha. There was no Hinduism at the time of the Buddha. Brahmins were Shramans. The Kshatriyas, kings, were Shramans, became teachers as Shramans. The Buddha himself called himself a Shraman. Mahavir, the founder of Jainism, also called himself a Shraman. Nowadays, a lot of people are mixed up about they studied with Vedic Brahmins and then he tried to reform Vedic system. That is not true. And he, because of him having practiced for 3 Asankhya Kalpa, he achieved the states that these gurus reached after many years of practice in a month's time. They were surprised and they are told him, you have reached the same stage as me, now you can teach. But he was not satisfied. He went to one who had reached a certain stage of samadhi and he was not satisfied, but another was a little bit higher stage of samadhi than that. He went there and he was not satisfied. The question arises, what was he not satisfied? About what was he not satisfied? Nowadays in the Indian subcontinent, specifically in India, there are thousands of yogis teaching all kinds of meditations and all kinds of samadhi techniques. And this is crucial to understand Buddhism. Those samadhis are good, they have their own value, but they do not produce enlightenment, at least the Buddhist enlightenment. And why? We'll go into that. We'll go into that slowly. First, let's talk about meditation. There are in the Buddhist Abhidharma and the Abhidhamma, both in Theravada and Mahayana tradition, there are 2 major types of meditation, 2 major categories. One is called Samatha. Sama means, Saman, same. This English word same, also etymologically is rooted the same thing, Sama. And Stha. Tha is shortened from Tha is shortened from Stha. And Stha is very close to the English word stay. When the mind stays in one place, in one object, whether out there or in here, that, and you meditate on that practice is called samatha practice. And what happens in that practice is the mind becomes calmer and calmer and calmer, and until you reach samadhi. In Hinduism, there are 2 kinds of samadhi, savikalpa samadhi, nirvikalpa samadhi. But in Buddhism, we have 4 different kinds of samadhis, which is called first dhyan, second dhyan, third dhyan, and fourth dhyan. In the fourth dhyan, breathing stops. And the person who can reach the fourth dhyan remains in that state if he stays 12 hours without breathing, completely like this. So, the problem with this is mind becomes quiet, relaxed, peaceful, very blissful. And if the person has practiced a lot, if you can come near him, sit near him, you feel that peacefulness as well. And that fools people. That fools people because our calm, krodh, moha, avidya, these things have not been addressed at all. They have just been made latent. The Sanskrit word, what's the word? Anusaya, sleeping. Anusaya, they sleep. And when you come back from samadhi, if you practiced for long, you feel peaceful for a while. But if there are cause and cause conditions out there to trigger your calm or krodh, it comes out. And you all know the story of Agastya and so on. very angry, flare up and give curse and so on, in spite of the fact that he is supposed to have meditated for eons and eons and so on. This is actually when each of one of us go to sleep tonight, we go into deep sleep, susupti, that's the Sanskrit word, right? That is samadhi. And if that samadhi can produce enlightenment, then every one of us, human, would be enlightened by the age of 80. Because we practice so much samadhi. You know? And that is the problem with just samadhis. You know? And there's a story of a great Buddhist master, Mahasiddha, called Sarapada, who was a Brahmin. His wife was a Buddhist, a Dakini. And one day he came, and there's a story, which story I've heard many Hindu swamis and teachers repeat without knowing where these stories come from. You know, one day he went back home in the evening, in the morning, and told his wife, make gadar ke halwa. Then he went into samadhi, and he went into samadhi for 12 hours. Then he came down and immediately asked his wife, "Where's my gadar ke halwa?" Then his wife said, "What kind of samadhi is this? If you can't forget the gadar ki halwa in 12 hours, what's the use of the samadhi?" Then Sarapa said, "That's right. So what do I do?" Then his wife taught him what is called vipassana. Vipassana means vividena visheshena. Vividena means holistically, visheshena means special, and pasana means seeing. Seeing how the world out there really exists, how my body really exists, how my mind really exists, rather than seeing it from the colored glass of my sanskar and avidya. That is vipassana. And samatha and vipassana combined together, you have samadhi. But this is a different kind of samadhi, where you penetrate through reality. When you penetrate through reality, and this is called vipassana. And vipassana is the contribution to the world of the Buddha. Samadhi is not new to the Indian subcontinent. Buddha didn't create it. He in fact just copied what was already there in the Indian subcontinent. So this is the unique contribution of the Buddha. And you have to remember that it happened in the Indian subcontinent. You should be proud of it. No prophet, no teacher, no son of God, or whatever, avatars ever taught this. That's the point. And it was in the Indian subcontinent, in the Magad, Bodhi tree, where he achieved this. Magad. And that is India. So every Indian should know this. It is your heritage. It is your heritage, vipassana. There are many kinds of vipassana. Nowadays, the Pali vipassana. Vipassana is quite popular because of Sri Goenkaji. But Mahayana has its vipassanas, many kinds of vipassanas. Vajrayana has its vipassanas, all based on sutras and shastras. And so it is not the only type of vipassana. So he left the two teachers and went under the Bodhi tree. Then he remembered the teachings of the past Buddhas.